Welcome everybody. This is the DVMUG Zoom meeting. It's Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. I don't have any news for you today, so I should strike that. We have one video from Gary, the buyer's guide, basically about all the new M4 Macs. And then basically this is the Q&A session. And then we'll have social hour as usual. So I'll go forward. Come on, there we go. This is the video we got. It's 11 and a half minutes. Oh, what happened? Hold on. What happened? It went away. Yikers. Okay, I lost it.
Well, you had it there. It was there, visible on our screen.
Yeah, right. So I think I clicked the link. I shouldn't have done that. I went to YouTube. There we go. That's about where we normally are.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost. Which is the right Mac for you? So in late 2024, early 2025, we can choose between 8 primary Mac models. And of course, there are variations on each one. You can divide them into 3 groups: laptops, the all-in-one iMac, and desktop Macs like the Mac Mini, Mac Studio, and Mac Pro. Now, if you're watching this, chances are you're probably not in the market for a Mac Pro, the really ultra high-end Macs. You want to focus on these 7 models right here. And the first decision you want to make is whether or not you want to get yourself a portable laptop Mac. The laptops come with their own screen, their own built-in keyboard and trackpad, and they've got a battery. You can take them with you wherever you go. Do you work in different places? Do you need to go between work and home? Or do you like to just take your Mac between rooms in your home, like your living room, your bedroom, the kitchen, wherever you want to work? If that's the case and you want something portable to handle all of that, then you're probably looking at a MacBook. However, if you want a Mac that's going to sit on a desk and not typically move, then you want one of the desktop Macs. By the way, if you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MacMost at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Now, assuming that you've decided that a MacBook is right for you, then you've got 2 primary models, the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro. But these could be divided further. For instance, the MacBook Air actually comes in 2 different sizes, a 13-inch model and a 15-inch model. The inches describes the diagonal size of the screen. So the smallest MacBook that Apple makes is the 13-inch MacBook Air. It's also the least powerful. You can actually get it with the M2 processor, which is Apple's processor from 2 years ago. It's a great processor and pretty powerful, but you should keep in mind it's about 2 years old. Think about the fact that Apple usually supports Macs for about 7 years in the future. So if you're starting off with a 2022 Mac like the M2 MacBook Air, you may only be looking at 5 years where you get major system updates. So saving a few bucks just for that may actually cost you more in the long run. The M3 model looks identical to the M2 model, but it is a newer one, so it's going to last you longer. But all the other specs for it, like how many ports it has, how much it weighs, and things like that, are the same. Now, you can also get a larger screen MacBook Air. So this comes with an M3 processor, so it's basically got the same power as the smaller MacBook Air, but a larger screen. So if a larger screen is important to you, either because you need one, maybe it's better for your eyes, or maybe you do work on apps that just require more screen space, like some video editing apps, coding apps, things like that, then you may want to consider this. And the only disadvantage is that it's just a little bit larger and heavier, so it's not as easy to carry, but it's only a small difference. Now, the MacBook Pros jump up a level in power. They're all using the M4 processors, and in fact, you can go beyond the base processors and go with an M4 Pro and M4 Max. This is when you really want to add a lot of power. Going from the base to Pro and the Pro to Max, there are big leaps in how much processing power you've got. And this is reflected in the price. It definitely costs a lot more. It's a little bit heavier. It does come with a better camera, capable of doing a lot of the cool new things Mac cameras do, like using center stage to always keep you in the middle. And it has more ports. And when you go with the M4 Pro or M4 Max, you actually get Thunderbolt 5 ports instead of Thunderbolt 4 ports. You've also got an SD card port and an HDMI port for plugging into projectors and TVs in meeting rooms, classrooms, and such. So it's definitely more of a pro level Mac. And you can go from the 14-inch to the 16-inch. So go to a much bigger screen, the biggest laptop screen Apple makes. This will significantly drive up the price. But if a big screen is important to you and you want the big screen to be with you everywhere you go, then the 16-inch MacBook Pro is probably what you want as long as you can afford it. It's definitely significantly heavier than the 14-inch model, as you would expect. But besides that, it carries basically the same amount of power. You can get a pretty powerful 14-inch one if you don't need the screen size, and it's the same as the 16-inch one. So let's take a look at the desktop models. Of course, you've got the iMac, and the iMac is significantly different than the other two options in that, of course, the screen is built in. So it comes with the screen. It also comes with a keyboard and a pointing device, mouse or a trackpad. So basically, you get everything with one purchase, and the price is fairly reasonable for that. The only real choice you've got to make is you can go up a level from 2 to 4 Thunderbolt ports if you need to connect a lot of devices to it. It's a great machine, but keep in mind that when it's time to upgrade to a new one, whether that's 5, 7, or 10 years in the future, you'll be buying a whole new screen there. The screen is part of the package. You can't use it later on for something else. So if you have an existing screen or you don't want to always have your screen tied to the computer itself, then you're probably better off going with either a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio. So you can basically get the screen that you want to go with it. And in the future, when you upgrade your Mac, you can keep that screen. That's a big difference. So the Mac Mini is fairly inexpensive because it doesn't come with the keyboard, pointing device, and the screen. And you can get it at either the M4 level, which is the same as the iMac. But you can also go to the M4 Pro. So go up a level in power. You're going to pay a lot more for that, though. You also get a lot of ports on the Mac Mini. And it's a really cool new design. It's pretty small. It's only 5 inches by 5 inches and 2 inches high. If you still need more power than what's in the Mac Mini, the next step up at the Mac Studio, it comes with either the M2 Max or M2 Ultra processor in it. So it's quite a bit more expensive. This is a professional Mac, no doubt about it. It comes with lots of different ports. And one of the things about it is it hasn't been updated a little while. June 2023 was the last time it was updated. We'll probably see an update in 2025 at some point. But since we're talking about the Max and Ultra processors here, they still are extremely powerful. So one of the questions to ask yourself is whether using your Mac for personal use or professional use. So think about things like editing graphics in an app like maybe Photoshop. Think about editing video in an app like Final Cut Pro, or maybe coding in something like Xcode. Think about whether or not you do that, but also how often you do that. If it's every once in a while, then you probably are fine with a personal Mac, like a MacBook Air or a Mac Mini or an iMac. If it's something you do on a weekly basis or even a daily basis, then you're probably going to want to look at a professional Mac. That's a MacBook Pro or a Mac Studio. Now, once you've chosen your Mac model, there are some variations you need to consider. You need to look at the processors that are available, you need to look at memory, and you need to look at storage. So, for processors that are available, you want to look at what's available for your Mac. For instance, the widest range is with the MacBook Pro. You can see here you can get one with the M4 processor, the M4 Pro, and the M4 Max. These are all going to be major upgrades in the power of your Mac. And you can see here what you get. The M4 processors come with basically a 10-core CPU, whereas the M4 Pro is a 12-core CPU and the M4 Max is a 14-core CPU. But also look at the GPUs. For instance, 16-core GPU here in the M4 Pro and a 32-core GPU in the M4 Max. This is for graphics. If you're doing really intense work like editing lots of video, for instance, then you want to get as good a processor as you can afford. Next, it comes down to memory. All the Macs come with 16 gigs of memory, which is fine for personal use. Remember, it's not a hard limit. Your super fast SSD inside the Mac is going to be used for swap no matter how much memory you've got. So you can still do the things you need to do. You might just get slowed down if you're doing a lot of intense work. Personal use, 16 gigs of RAM is great. If you're using it for professional use, you may want to consider updating depending upon how memory intensive the apps you use are. So you want to think about those apps, think about how much memory they use, and whether or not you could afford to spend, say, $200 or $400 extra to go up steps in memory. And then next is storage. Now, some of the Macs, like the MacBook Air, iMac, and Mac Mini, start at 256 gigs of storage. I don't recommend anybody get that. You should go up a level to 512. The MacBook Pros here, like what I'm looking at, they start at that level. 256 gigs is too little. Your system's going to use a bunch. Memory swap is going to use a bunch. Your apps are going to use a bunch, and you're going to end up with very little left. Even if now you don't think you use anything, all it takes is one trip where you take a bunch of pictures or video or one video project that you decide to work on, and suddenly you don't have enough space on your internal drive. And it's not easy to use external space for things because there are things like memory swap and iCloud caching that only work on the internal drive. And even if now 256 gigs may work for you, think about the fact that you might own this Mac for 5 to 10 years. And during that time, you could easily get to the point where that minimum amount of storage isn't enough. And I say this because I've got 17 years of helping people with their Macs. And over again, I see people running into trouble because when they bought their last Mac, they decided to go with minimum storage, maybe thinking they would get an external drive, and then they found out that there are a lot of disadvantages to that. So if you've got an extra $200 to spend it on upgrading your SSD to the next level, not the 256 gigs. So one of the most important things when listening to people like me giving you advice on which Mac to buy, or listening to your friends or peers when they give you advice, is that you have to make the decision yourself. You have to weigh your budget versus your needs and figure out which Mac is right for you. You're going to get friends that are going to tell you that you should get this Mac or that Mac, but they may be thinking more about what's right for them, not particularly what's right for you. And if you're making a big decision like deciding between a MacBook or an iMac or a Mac Mini, I strongly suggest you actually see these in person. Go to your computer store nearby that has them in stock. Go to an Apple store. A lot of times people will change their minds completely once they actually get their hands on the devices, realizing that the iMac looks pretty cool, or maybe they really do want a portable MacBook Air. It's a lot lighter and easier to carry than they thought, and so on. Don't make the decision without actually getting in front of these machines and trying them for yourself. So if you're deciding which Mac to buy right now, I hope I've been able to help you with that. Thanks for watching.
Okay, then. That's all we got for video, so I'll probably comments and questions about this one.
It was very timely. I'm considering getting a new laptop.
Yeah, it was there was an article I put in the MailChimp Sunday with why it's a good time to buy a Mac. It's like for a long time all the Macs are good and they're all updated. There is some M4s still coming for the Air and next year and the Studio, but the Mini is a killer. It's a killer computer.
Hmm.
It's actually, Ann bought one the first day, and I came home and looked at Amazon. They were already discounted at Amazon for day one.
Hmm.
The Mini is it's a better buy than the Studio, unless you need some of that high-end features. It's an M4 as opposed to an M2 Ultra or Max.
See, I'm gonna have to, when the time comes, I'll listen to this video again and see if I can understand some of those terms. I'm basically, I don't understand a lot of that stuff. I just know from you helping me, John, that I'm running out of room. So I need
Yeah,
to,
well, like you said, don't buy the 256. Don't.
yeah,
That's a mistake.
I
I'd recommend a gig.
I tell my students and my girlfriend, everybody else, get as much memory as you can afford.
Memory or storage.
Storage. Memory
Storage.
is not that important. This is
Yeah.
storage.
It's storage because you can't add to it, and it's like,
It's like your phone. People buy a
Exactly.
phone, they don't buy enough, and then it's full, and there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah,
You
You're
made a
stuck.
good point about the internal drives use of swap, and having worked with the systems I have for years, making sure there's enough room for swap is pretty critical. You
Yeah, and
never know when the system's going to ask to use swap.
yeah,
See,
and the SSD is so fast that memory swap is not a big deal if you have the space. It's
That's what I'm saying. You need to make sure you have the
yeah,
space available for the system.
yeah.
Okay, being the new kid on the block, I don't understand memory swap. What's that?
It uses the local storage device. In this case, the fabric, the processor with the built-in memory. It uses that when it needs more memory by writing to the storage area.
It's kind of like juggling. I think juggling would be a good description of it. So that it has all this stuff up in the air at once and it has to be used, and it's reading and writing instead of in RAM, it's reading and writing on the scratch disk on the SSD.
I
But
like
that's for like video and photo and stuff like that.
I
Okay,
like
that's good.
I like the Thanksgiving dinner scenario that Rick you came up with once. You're making Thanksgiving dinner, you have lots of storage space in your cupboards, and that's your storage space. Your what used to be a hard disk, now it's an SSD. But your RAM is like your kitchen counter. You get the stuff out of the cupboards and you put it on the counter. Well, if your counter is the size of a TV tray and you're trying to make Thanksgiving dinner, you're constantly putting things up in the cupboards and getting it down, and it's going like this all the time. In the back in the days of spinning hard drives, which were very slow, they would just come to a screeching halt. Not so much anymore with the SSDs. They're so fast built in that the Apple computers, it swaps it really fast. So the storage space is more important than the actual RAM.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, I
Has anybody looked at the prices of these new MacBook Pros? Holy smokes, they go up.
Oh, if you start adding up storage space and you get two,
You can get up,
terabyte, two, you get very expensive.
you can get up to $6,000 and $8,000.
Yeah, you get the Max, Ultra Max, and the high storage. Yeah, you can jack them way up. You can jack a mini up to several thousand.
you probably have to have a real job for that kind of usage.
I'd say
Yeah,
16 gigs and a terabyte is probably plenty for most of us.
absolutely.
Can
Mo-
you purchase a separate storage device to plug into the Mac?
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no.
Thunderbolt, but it won't do swapping, I don't think.
If you want to put like, I live in small storage space. 256 is fine with me because I'm media, all my music and my video, any kind of that lives on an external drive. That's what kills your space.
Mhm.
But your
But the
photo
point,
library, you have tens of thousands of photos and lots of videos, and you sync to your phone, and that fills things up pretty quick.
Right.
yeah, but the point,
Peter, you do editing, video editing.
Yes.
That's that would be a candidate for an external hard drive. I mean SSD, because you
But you
can
keep.
leave it out there instead of taking up space on your internal SSD.
Mhm.
Oh
Well,
yeah, you
that's
already do that. Yeah.
have it designed. Right. Yeah.
Do we
And
still
I
need the
agree with
splash
Gary
screen?
when he said, "What's $200 for another 256 gig?" It's really it's true. You're not gonna be hurting $200, is not that much, but you're gonna have enough space.
Especially if it's going over 7, if you figure you can use it for 7 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we still need the splash screen up?
We're talking about this subject for the people in the video, or we can stop. What is the last video? Stop share. Stop share.
okay.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the point he made about swap space. That's going to make the difference for me. I'll go for 512 instead of 256.
Can you explain a little bit more about the swap space again? And
Okay,
in real simple English?
sure. So
Shipping too.
when the computer's operating system has more demand for what it wishes it had in the way of memory, and it doesn't at that time, it's going to write some of what would normally be going into the computer's RAM. It'll write it to the drive.
Okay.
And so when you're doing something really active and really involved, wanting space, what they were saying is it's going to want to write onto that drive during that process. And if it writes to your local drive, which is part of the CPU and built-in memory, which is the way Apple's doing it now, you want it to write into the fastest, most efficient space it can. So the more you have, the better the computer will run. But if you're just doing like daily end user tasks, you're not doing something intensive with real time activity or capture, it may not be that critical.
Yeah, that's a
you
good
shouldn't,
point, because if you're going to be using swap space, you're going to be putting tremendous strain. I shouldn't use the word strain. You're going to be making a big call on the capacity of the computer, and you may be using Photoshop or video editing. Maybe you're doing a full-length movie or something like that. That's when you're going to be getting into swap space.
Right.
Just ordinary photos and stuff like most of us do, you're not going to ever even begin to use that.
I'm gonna just put a simplified version out there. Just make sure your hard drive is big enough, and
Yes.
don't worry about the swapped space. That is a CPU function. It is not up to you to say yes or no. And that's all there is to it. Just make sure you have a large hard drive that'll fit all your stuff, and the system is going to use what the system is going to use.
Yeah, and I don't care who you are, don't buy the 256.
No,
That's correct.
Just don't buy it.
unless you're me. I live in 256, no problem.
Oh, no.
Well,
Well, if you got up to date though, John, you wouldn't use it 256.
Oh, get them where it hurts.
Yeah, no, but I don't mean that in a critical way.
Is he still using an abacus, or what's the story here?
He stole an Intel.
Oh,
Pretty.
Commodore? What?
Well, I don't have that much space because I don't store any photos or music on my internals. Never have. It's all always on the external. And that's where the stuff is. Yeah, of course, by 100 gigs of music and 100 gigs of photos, then that's 200. I don't have that. I have that on always had that on external drives.
Back in the day when the iMac first came out in colors, I used to call John Mr. Beige because he was back a few.
It's not about the color. It's about I'm a bottom feeder.
that's a good one. Yeah, it works. It works. But taking an individual into an account nowadays, John is an exception. John knows exactly what happens, what he needs. But for just an individual that wants a computer, just make sure it's got enough memory, like they say, 16 gigabytes, and enough storage space to keep your stuff. And I don't know what how much anybody needs, but 256 is not enough, like Gary said. This is a 21st century. The pictures are larger. Whole bunch of we keep a whole bunch of pictures, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why Apple even markets some of that stuff. During the beginning of the iPhones, they were selling iPhones with 64 gigabytes of storage, and it was not enough for anybody. And people would buy them because they were the cheapest phone available.
And Rick,
My,
I bet people at your community center class, there's people in there that have those.
yeah.
Yes.
My
Yes.
first my
I've got
first five iPhone 5 was a 64 gig.
Yeah.
It you couldn't put all the apps on there. Or
No, you
you had
had
to
to
choose.
take them off and put them
Yeah.
on.
But now that what the heck?
Well, now people didn't, when the iPhone first came out, people didn't shoot video on their iPhone. You couldn't do that.
Yeah, there you go. That's right.
Now
That's
people
right.
just willy-nilly shoot video all the time. You know, they got
Yep.
tens of thousands of photos.
Yep.
They don't even
And
think
now with
about it.
the new OS, my gosh, just touch a button, you're recording a phone call or you're
Yeah.
like John says, shooting a video. I just updated to 18.2 beta today on my phone. I'm excited. There's a new feature now that if you're, say, in front of a restaurant or something, you point the phone at the restaurant and lightly touch the phone control button, and it gives you their hours and all the information about the restaurant or any other place. If you're at a monument, just point it at the monument, lightly touch the button, and it tells you everything about it.
That's kind of that's to me that's very scary. I mean, will it tell you if you point it at the restaurant? Will it tell you where the employees live or what their names are or anything?
No, no.
It'll be there.
Just for reference, the first iPhone in 2007 had 4 gig of RAM.
Mm.
Yeah, and they quickly changed that to 8 and they dropped the 4
Yeah.
because it didn't work.
Ain't
It also
no
was,
place safe
I think when it
anymore.
came out, it was $100 more to go from 4 to 8.
Yeah.
And then they dropped the 4 and only went with the 8. That was,
Speaking of memory, I remember how excited I was to boost my Mac Plus from 1 megabyte to 4,
Oh, yeah.
and get my 20 megabyte external CMS hard drive for $650.
Yep.
well, it kind of
Yep.
used to be back in the day before these M processors, you'd buy a iMac and it had slots in it for more memory that wasn't even filled. So you
Yep.
didn't have to buy Apple's expensive memory. You buy it, use it for a few years, start to
Yeah.
get it older and slower, you upgrade the OS, and then you could buy RAM for cheap and fill it up and have 4 times the RAM you bought for
Yeah.
not much money. You
Yeah.
can't do that anymore.
Back in the 80s and 90s at our Mac clinic, we were always updating RAM for people. In fact, I think didn't we just get rid of a bunch of 2 megabyte RAM
Yeah,
chips
the
and stuff
ones
like
and twos, I just e-wasted them. Nobody, because we had tons of them where people would pull them. Nobody wanted to put them back in anything. They had
No.
no value.
And
But we
anybody
would keep them
pull out
around.
screwdriver?
Sometimes we could take whatever he pulled out of somebody else and put them in the empty RAM slots just because they were there and it was a free upgrade.
Yeah.
So,
Anyone need an extra long screwdriver?
Oh, yeah, for cracking the cases.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still have a case cracker, I think, around here somewhere.
Yeah, I've got that. God knows how long it is.
I have a little gadget that worked on the Mac Plus to spread those little plastic
Oh
things
yeah.
so that they wouldn't break.
Right.
God help you if they broke. I remember I visited some friends in England and they had a Mac and he had tried to put RAM in there and he broke the plastic tips.
Oh,
So I
So,
fixed it for
Al-
him. I took a pencil eraser and a vegetable tie and I put the eraser right in the center of it, ran the tie under it and twisted it tight so that it pushed it against the
that's cool.
thing. And it worked until he got rid of it.
Then it quit working.
Yeah,
I
no,
wonder what the next guy
they-
thought when he looked in there goes, what the hell?
yeah.
Using
So,
tie downs.
Al Medvin, we just got an M4 iMac. How's that working for you? Unmute yourself. How do you like it?
Yeah.
You got to unmute yourself. We can't hear
Hold
you.
your space
mic's
key
off.
down. Hold the space key down to talk.
Or just push unmute on the bottom left where your microphone is. Click unmute. I didn't know how to do that.
That's why I always say space bar. It's easier.
Yeah, but you don't have to hold it down.
Keyboard.
Okay.
Okay,
You're
now,
unmuted. Yeah.
Well, it's great. It's a big improvement over the other one. It's a lot faster. and pictures are better. The screen is better. Everything's better about it.
Let's see here.
So
Yeah,
what is
the
this?
It's an iMac M4.
Oh, wow.
Nice little machine.
Yeah, and I got
more storage.
512.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of the 256.
Yeah, you also got when you the basic iMac only comes with 2 ports on the back. You upgrade one level for $200, you get 4 ports, you get the fingerprint reader, and you get Ethernet on the power supply.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's worth the $200 for all those. If you just need Ethernet, you can get $30. You can get Ethernet on the power supply without getting the other stuff. But
For the iMac, where's the fingerprint reader? Isn't
On
that
the
a-
keyboard.
Right.
on the
So you have to
keyboard,
buy the keyboard along with the iMac.
Yeah, so
it
like
comes with
I use a mechanical keyboard, but I have to keep that stupid Apple keyboard nearby so that I can, when I need to open something, I touch my thumb to it. It's crazy.
it's in the top right of the keyboard that comes with the when you get the upgraded model.
You have to buy the keyboard as an extra add-on, though. It doesn't.
Yeah,
No,
it comes with it. It's a package deal for 200. You get the fingerprint reader, Ethernet, and 4 ports in the back instead of 2. I think you can buy that.
The iMac.
Yeah, for
on
the
the
iMac,
iMac, yeah.
the bundle.
It's the second level iMac.
I think you can buy the keyboard separately, but if you, I don't know. I guess you can upgrade just the keyboard if you want.
I think the keyboard costs about $140.
Right, you might as well get the
And it's
4 ports.
chiclets. I don't like it.
I can't use that Magic Keyboard. I make more mistakes. I'm still using the one that was before that one. The first wireless, the little one.
Well, I have a clickety clack mechanical board
It would
that
be
I
nice
like.
if they sold just a little hockey puck fingerprint reader, but that it's built into the keyboard.
I would buy that in a minute.
Jason Snell didn't like the keyboard, but he wanted the fingerprint reader, so he actually bought the keyboard and took it apart and took the fingerprint reader out, and somebody did printed it, 3D printed a case for it, and he puts it under his desk so he can just touch the button. Somebody actually makes a case to hack the keyboard. You have to destroy a keyboard.
And just get that reader.
To get the
that-
fingerprint reader as just a standalone button. Yeah,
Somebody could make some money if they came up with one.
yeah, but they're never going to. It's built into the secure, what is it, the T2 chip on the computer? It has to be that computer. You can't put the fingerprint reader on any computer. It has to have the T2 chip inside.
Yeah.
The security chip.
One of
The
the
same
things.
thing happened with the phones, where replacing the screen, there's the problem with the fingerprint reader on
Right.
older phone models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My phone has a fingerprint reader.
Yeah.
Well, shall we move to Q&A?
Any more comments, questions about this? We could end this recording and go to general Q&A. This will be on YouTube public, and then we could go move on. Yay or
Yeah.
nay?
Sure.
Aye.
No more comments about this. I'll end this recording. Say bye-bye. If you're watching this on YouTube, DVMUG members, you got to go to the BBS and get the link to the general Q&A. See you later.